Kamusta Kapuso, and thanks again for joining us. Our last segment showed the interaction between Ben, a real estate broker, and Mr. G, the seller of a home. And sometimes, grabe, the situation gets a little overheated because usually sellers want to sell their homes for a lot higher price and buyers want to buy the home at the lowest price possible. And, you know, with Ben being the real estate broker that he is, he was already informed with what the MLS went for. He went in there, he knew what the comparables were, and basically he knew the price that would get the property to sell. Because, you know, if you price the property too high, as Mr. G's original realtor, then it could sit stagnant, sometimes for 90 or 120 days. And we've seen some for as long as 6 months, diba?
Yes, when many retirees, especially my clients, are looking to retire, there's only two primary factors in how they can use their home as a retirement vehicle. Number one way is they use what is called a reverse mortgage. But pag-usapan natin yan about that in another show. The second way is to sell your home, right, hon?
That's right. And in selling your home, the first step is to look for a seasoned real estate agent. When I say seasoned, it's someone that's knowledgeable, or a real estate agent that's knowledgeable not only in your area and the properties in your area, but actually has the selling experience that goes behind that. So when you first meet with a real estate agent to list your house, and again, it's the seller who's going to be doing that, you have to interview them. You have to ask them for references. You have to ask them for comparables, how they plan on marketing. Now, Mr. G in our last segment was a seasoned homeowner and had multiple properties, so he already knew not only to ask the right questions, but he asked Ben, are you going to hold open houses, which is what a lot of realtors do to attract other real estate agents with buyers in the home.
Yes, pero again, before we start yan, right, it is important for the retirees to speak to their spouse about retiring, because you might be selling a home at a buyer's market where you're going to get a low ball price, because let's face it, right now is not the time to list your home. But if it's mandatory that we do that, let's again speak to your spouse so that everyone is in agreement. Find out exactly how much you need in retirement to fund your retirement. Because Mr. G kept saying, I need to retire, pero did they even talk about with their CPA or their accountant on how much do they need to retire, or how much is it going to cost to locate to a new part of the country, right?
That's right. And you know, an important part to remember is that when you sell a property, let's say if you have a capital gain on it, and you know, you'd be lucky in this market if there's a capital gain, so I hope that everyone can have a capital gain, really, but you can write off up to $250,000 in the capital gain if you're single, and up to $500,000 if you're married filing joint. What that means is you don't pay tax on that excess. So let's say you bought the house in the past for $300,000 and you're able to sell it for $800,000 now. So you have what's called a capital gain of $500,000. Typically, you'd have to pay taxes on the $500,000, but with the tax laws how they're written, if you qualify, you'll be able to exclude that from income, and that way it's actually a tax shelter.
Yes. Pero ngayon po, right now what's going on is the earlier generations were able to use their home as their home, right? Pero ngayon, with the baby boomers generation, it is unlikely that they paid off their mortgage. So it's a different way of thinking, because before, their parents would have had their home paid off. Ngayon po, you're facing retirement and your home isn't paid off. So tapos, meron pa tayong malaking problema that's going on in the economy right now, is that the homes are underwater pa, which means that you want to sell your home at what you bought it for, or even more, pero ngayon, it's even worth less. So what are they gonna do, hon?
That's right. Well, and in Mr. G's case, he wants to get rid of the liability, diba? And make that work, make the asset work for him. Well, you know, he still has a mortgage on his house. Let's say if his mortgage was $300,000 or $330,000, and Ben actually sold the property for $830,000. Well, he'd have that $500,000 gain that Mr. G and his wife would be able to write off on taxes. And now, when Mr. G would have that $500,000, what can you do with that? I mean, yes, he wants to retire, he wants to do this and that, but you can make the money work for you. So you turned a liability and a monthly payment now. Remember, he didn't want to make that monthly payment every time, that monthly mortgage payment. He takes that, and now there's no monthly payment. He has $500,000 in the bank. What can he do with that? Well, he could buy maybe other investment properties for cash, for less than the value of the cost to actually build a new property, or maybe he could put a part of it into, let's say, an annuity that we've talked about in prior segments, and actually get a bonus of up to 9% on that immediately, upon, let's say for example, he puts $100,000 in, automatically it'd be worth $109,000. So he could really make his money start working for him in his retirement years, diba?
Yes. Ngayon po, if you're like Mr. G and you're looking to retire soon, then I have 3 tips for you. The number 1 tip po is if you're looking to retire, where do you want to retire ba? Because you need to go ahead and start your studies financially. How much is the tax there? How much is groceries there? And all of that kind of stuff. Tip number 2 po is that go ahead, like we can't stress this enough, but hire an experienced realtor because like Mr. G, he already had the home listed with another realtor and now he's going to have another realtor list. You don't want to keep jumping from realtor to realtor kasi the more your house is on the market, the more old news your house becomes. And my last tip po is that if you're looking to retire, make sure that you have all your eggs accounted for, meaning to say the moving costs, everything that is you don't want a big surprise at the end of it.
That's right. 3 good tips, honey. I hope our kapuso got a pen and paper to write those down. Now, I have an email question, and our email question is, I owe more on my mortgage than the value of my home. How can I get rid of my debt?
Well, I would suggest to call your lender and exactly explain what's going on, that you want to sell your home, pero you owe more than it's worth, and then they can actually explain to you what are the proper steps without you having a liability.
That's right, because it could either be a deed in lieu of foreclosure, or they can tell you, go ahead and short sale your house. And if they say to short sale the house, you can actually talk to a realtor, but remember on what we said earlier, work with a realtor that has experience in actual short sales because it's a different animal completely, diba? Honey, I guess that about wraps up this week's episode. That's about all we have now. Remember, email us or call us Kapuso, and we'll definitely point you in the right direction. Honey, you never have to look too far to find your hidden fortune. Sometimes it's right in front of you. You just have to know where to look, diba?
And we're here to help. That's money in your bank that you can count on. Until next time, mga kapuso, kaya mo gawin dito sa
KMG!